Welcome to Changing Suits. We're your hosts, Bal
and Taj, discussing the latest news, views, and general life for us Western Asians.
Follow us on Instagram and Facebook, changing_suits, and subscribe so you never miss an episode. Hi, welcome to Changing Suits. My name's Bal.
And my name's Taj.
On today's episode, we'll be talking to Mira Bogle, who is a menopause expert, because we wanted to know everything about menopause, all the ins and outs. Mira has her own podcast called Mira's Made from Scratch. And we just wanted to discuss her past, why she's decided to do this, and what impact she's making through her movement, I guess. So Mira, can you give us a bit of an introduction to yourself, please?
Thank you so much for having me on. Firstly, this is absolutely such a delight. Thank you. So my name is Mira Bogle, and I think you've done a brilliant introduction. I have become to be known, it's kind of evolved as the menopause expert, which is an interesting, I never thought I'd be called that when I kind of first started out my journey and my mission to raising awareness about menopause.
Mira, I was just going to say, I thought you were going to say that it's not something I thought I was going to be called when I grew up. So I was like, most of us probably don't, to be fair.
Definitely not when I grew up. I mean, I didn't even know what menopause was. So, that's really what this is all about was that, forget about being called a menopause expert. I didn't even know I was a menopause expert until I kind of got to this point. But I founded a business. I've got two businesses. My main business is a nursery business that I've been running for 20 years. And that's been, that's my passion. Again, it's education based with young children. But I evolved Mira's Made from Scratch, which was very much based around holistic health and getting individuals and people to reach optimal health through this journey, which has sort of been my own journey as well, because I kind of, because I'm gluten and dairy intolerant, and my journey is on my website. So all of these issues kind of led me to a place where I had to create food for myself. And that sort of evolved into this business, which is very young. It's very new, but we do support and help a variety of people, but really focus now on sort of menopausal women. Really, that's the kind of key category we're in at the moment.
I'm so excited about this podcast because I am pre-menopausal and I'm lost. So this is amazing that we've got you on. And I like the idea that you mentioned, not that I like the idea that you're gluten and lactose intolerant. I'm so not saying that, but I hear where you're coming from, and it's amazing. So let's get kick-started. I am so excited.
Fabulous.
So firstly, the obvious question, I guess, what is the menopause?
Okay, well, in its most simplistic form, menopause is literally a time of transition from for a woman's body to go from a fertile state to an infertile state. That is pretty much what it is. And it sounds nice and easy and simple, but actually for over half of the population, it is not as easy as that. So 1 in 4 of us will transition through this time like a breeze, literally not even understanding what the fuss is all about. 1 in 4 of us will have such debilitating symptoms that it will actually require, huge and significant changes in lifestyle, which really do need to be managed. And for the rest of us, for half of us, we'll have to address it. We'll have to look at lifestyle changes, dietary changes. We'll have to look at perhaps options of HRT if we want to take those or not. But literally, that's what it is.
So then, just on that, Mira.
Yeah.
So it sounds like there is the split. So the ones that are they really suffer, the 1 in 4, and then the ones, like you said, it's a breeze, 1 in 4. But then most people, half of the population that will go through menopause, have some changes, but it's moderate. Is that the right way of looking at it from what you said?
They're moderate changes. We could call them moderate changes, but to the actual individual woman, they're quite they're more than moderate. They feel almost like, what on earth am I doing? Why do I have to do this? Why can't I eat this anymore? Why can't I drink this anymore? Why can't I why am I having anxiety and panic attacks and things like that. So there are certain things, so they sound moderate, but when we go into the symptoms and I talk a little bit more about what we're doing and explain a bit more about what kind of menopause, a bit more detail, you'll see that actually those changes, firstly, they can be very frightening if you don't know that's what's happening to you. So in theory, sounds really great, right? We should all know that at some stage in our lives, like every mammal, we will go from fertile to infertile, right? But there are some sort of nuances to that. So just to kind of go into a little bit more detail, if you don't mind, there is a period of time called perimenopause. Okay, so perimenopause is a time when you are still fertile, you're ovulating, you're having your periods, you can get pregnant, and it can start any time from your late 30s, but that is regarded as early menopause. Classically more mid 40s, so about 45, and it can last anything from a few years to 10 years. Okay, so during that period of time, your symptoms, all the symptoms that happen can happen for the duration of the menopause, and we use that as an umbrella term. And we'll go into that in a bit more detail. But during this time, this is the time when people are kind of like, am I menopausal? Am I not menopausal? What is menopause? My body's changing. What's going on? I've got no clue. I feel like I'm going crazy. All of those things. And then you've got menopause. And menopause literally is 12 months without a period. So you do not have a bleed at all. You don't have a period for 12 months. That's menopause.
So on that point, because I've noticed it, when I was younger, where people were like, "Oh, am I not?" So I get that. But with the menopause, you're saying it's consistent every month. You will not have
For 12
a
months.
period.
Yeah.
So what if on that point you had it, I don't know, at the 10th or the 11th month? Would you then still be in the perimenopausal stage in that case?
Yeah.
Got you.
And that can happen. So your body can your periods can become very erratic during perimenopause. So if you think about it's literally, and again we'll go into slightly more detail if you want me to, but it's kind of about the hormones, right? So your hormones are shifting, and that's what's causing all these things to happen. But just to go back to menopause is that 12 months, and then the day after your 12 months, you're postmenopausal. Okay.
Wow.
Oh wow. Okay.
That's literally, that is so we say menopause, but those are the kind of real terms that we're looking at. So, in the event that you want to go and visit your doctor and stuff like that, it's really important to be clear about what you're saying. As an example, I used to go, so I started at 40. I realize now, looking back, my menopausal journey started when I was 40, and I hadn't got a clue. I'm 54 now. And at that time, I literally did not have a clue what was happening to me.
Can we start there? Because I must admit, I think I am going through that stage now.
Yeah.
So what are the symptoms of the perimenopausal, and where would you, because I'm thinking, okay, I'm having this symptom. What are they?
Yeah. There are well over 37 symptoms. There are probably up to 50 symptoms. And the thing to also remember is these 50 symptoms are really only based on the number of women that are coming forward and presenting with them. Okay. And that has been a rarity, right? So if you can imagine now, the women are coming forward so much more. The more we know, the more symptoms are coming out. And there are some really unique symptoms, okay? So, and I'll explain the reason for this in a minute, but let's go through the symptoms. Anything, it could be absolutely anything, but it could be brain fog. Hot flashes are the ones that most people think about. It could be any form of lack of temperature control. So it could be just feeling really, 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 really ridiculously cold, but also feeling ridiculously hot and just suddenly like this heat in you. It can be night sweats, which can often be to the point where, the way I had them, I was having to change sheets 3 or 4 times a night and having to have a shower 3 or 4 times a night. I felt like I'd run a marathon. It was absolutely awful.
That sounds really extreme, actually.
It isn't extreme. It's actually can be quite. That is what women put up with, and they just think, "Oh, I wonder what's happening to me."
I'm almost doing a tick list here because I'm like,
yeah,
yes,
you will.
yes.
Just honestly,
like,
and
yes, I can relate.
Yeah. And so sort of concentration, lack of concentration, dry skin, sometimes dry eyes, hair thinning, and hair changing. Funniest thing was I thought my hair, obviously, well, I say obviously, my first thing was at 40, it was my 40th birthday, and my hair started to thin. And I was going out for my party, and I came back from my party, and I literally just was in tears. I was like, said to my husband, I said, my hair's really thinning. I can see my scalp. I don't know what's going on. And actually, I thought, okay, I'm going to see a trichologist. And, I kind of dealt with each of the symptoms I was going through individually. But actually, what I didn't realize was about 2 years ago, the pandemic, my hair went through a complete change and suddenly went into this wild, wiry, kind of jungle woman type look.
To
Like,
be fair, during COVID, I think most people went through that.
did
Where it's
they?
like, I
I was
don't
just thinking
care.
it's menopause. That was the thing. My hair
It's
just went.
not. It was COVID. No one could be bothered. That's what it was, Mira.
I literally had the finest, thinnest hair, and suddenly I had this wild hair, and I was like, how do people cope with this? But anyway, so hair thinning, different texture of hair, different texture of skin. What else? There are absolutely, like I said, there are 37 or more. You can, lack of sleep, so insomnia can be another one. Palpitations, anxiety, low mood, low self-esteem, and weight gain is another one as well that can happen.
So if you're going through all these different things, is there something that you would approach your GP about, or do you just cope with it? What happens?
Okay.
And do they recognise it, first of all?
So the first thing to note is that, and I was involved in the parliamentary inquiry, which I was very lucky to be able to be involved in, which is in parliamentary inquiry into cross-party parliamentary inquiry into menopause, where they're hopefully going to be starting to make policy that will have an impact on how menopause is looked at across society, not just in one place in society. But the one thing that is well known and recognised is that actually when in the education process for people to become medical practitioners, there really isn't any focus on menopause at all. Okay. Now, that leaves everybody very ill-equipped unless they're specialized in that area. So when people go to their GPs and go, oh, my GP, like mine, didn't know anything about it, I got given antidepressants, blah, 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 all the rest of it. It's because they don't know. They're not joining the dots, okay? And now this is changing slowly in that there are courses that medical practitioners can attend, but it's got to be for their professional development, and it's got to be of interest for them. Okay.
Do you know what's just a quick question in regards to the actual checklist? Because, like you said, there's so many symptoms, and of course, you could always think, the insomnia is because of this, and you can see where the confusion is, even for GPs and medical professionals. Firstly, is there a tick list? I suppose part of your educational resources probably has that. So you're nodding your head, yep.
Yes, I am.
Okay,
I'm
good.
nodding. I'm nodding. Yes.
And the other thing is, for a GP to then realize, so you saw it yourself, where they then gave you antidepressants, what other questions did they ask? So you obviously felt depressed, which is why they did that. But were there any others of, oh, are you having insomnia? Is your hair thinning? There was no other question.
No, because they don't know. So what happens is with all these individual symptoms, okay, what the GP does quite rightly is just treat the individual symptoms. Okay? They're not going to treat you for hair thinning. They're going to think, well, you've probably not got enough nutrients, give you some iron, right? If you've got joint pains, they're going to say, which is another one, big one, joint pain. Fatigue is another one. So joint pains, they'll give you ibuprofen or something like that. If you're feeling low in mood, anxious, getting palpitations, they're going to give you antidepressants, right? So you can't blame the GPs. So what we need to do as individuals, as women going through this, is we need to get educated. We need to get more knowledge. So there is a tick list. So what I suggest to women to do, and the other thing is also, when you're going to your GP, what are you going to your GP for? That's also the other thing, because they're not going to be able to give you advice on diet and lifestyle, right? So that's something. What they can give you information, perhaps a little bit on, is something like HRT, but we'll come to that in a minute. So when we go back to our symptoms, there are symptom checkers. There is a symptom checklist. Okay. I've got one on my website, and I also refer you on to other websites that have them on. I've also got a menopause survey on there. Could I be going through menopause? Tick, 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 tick. That kind of thing.
We'll put that all in the bio and provide all the links.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Yeah, it'd be really helpful because they're all free resources. So they're, what I say to the people that speak to me and the women that speak to me, and when I speak to others, is that you've got to keep that tick list and go to your doctor to say, right, what I want you to understand is these are all the symptoms I'm having. all at the same time. Some may be worse, some may be better. And I've got some ladies come to me and say, well, yeah, but I've got a toddler, so actually, having lack of sleep, it could all be that. I said, yeah, it could well be. But actually, also, if if you've had your baby at 38 or 40, and you've now got a 2-year-old, you're 42, you could very well be perimenopausal.
Quick
So keep
question.
that checklist. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, Mira, that's really interesting because if you think about it, the question is, does it vary with age? Now, with periods and things, obviously over the years we've seen it used to be, kids would get their periods at, I don't know, 14, 15, then the age then reduced. I don't know what the average is at the moment, but that's something we even noticed within our own family and friends. Is that the same with menopause where, we're talking about late 30s, 40s where you start the perimenopause, but could it happen earlier then?
Oh, I mean, menopause can it's very rare, but I say it's very rare. It does happen. It can happen earlier. Menopause can also be brought on by certain cancer treatments and things like that as well. So it can be brought on before it would normally be brought on. But yes, it could be. But generally, still they say that they still classify that as early menopause. But anything sort of 38 and 40 is still regarded as early menopause.
But then don't you think it's interesting if you went to a GP at late 30 towards 40s, why would that not be the first thing of, oh, do you have any of these symptoms? Yes, it is about
Because they
raising
don't know
awareness
about
yourself.
menopause. They
But it's
don't.
just the fact, it's just the age thing. Because if it's roughly
Yeah, so when
late
you go to your
30s,
GP, what
mm,
they're going to be looking at is A, symptoms,
mm,
B, age. So what they're looking at is you to be around 45, okay? Roughly 45, that's your average age for perimenopause,
mm,
okay? So if you're below that age, they're not really going to be looking at that. That's not the first thing they're going to look at. There could be
okay.
many other things. So something like, for example, thyroid issues are
Mm,
very similar to menopause issues. Menopause
mm.
symptoms and thyroid symptoms are the same. So
That's
they'll
funny.
probably,
Yeah, that's funny you should say that because that was the first thing that when I spoke to the GP. That's what they said. Thyroid.
yeah. So they'll they'll do a blood test, and here we're going to go on to testing. Your GP will do a blood test, but they're not going to check whether you're going through perimenopause. And I'll explain why. What they're doing is using that to eliminate the possibility that you're going through any other kind of illness. Okay, so that's what they're using the blood test for. During perimenopause, what's happening is there are 3 hormones. You've got estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. Okay. Those sex hormones are fluctuating and changing. All 3 of them. The degree to which any of those 3 vary and change will have an impact on the types of symptoms that you are experiencing. Okay.
Okay.
Estrogen is regarded and referred to as a master hormone. Okay. You have, we have, women have, men have it too, but we're speaking about women in particular. We have estrogen receptors absolutely everywhere in our body. We have them in our brain, we have them in our gut, we have them even on a cellular level when it comes to creating energy. Okay, so that's where the fatigue comes from. Now, you imagine that suddenly that estrogen that we're used to having starts to drop, but it doesn't just go lovely and down like that and we get used to it. It drops, then it goes up, then it drops, then you've got a period, then your progesterone goes up, it's just all over the place. So during perimenopause, that's what's happening. Your body is starting to transition and getting used to not having the same amount or type of estrogen that it's used to having. Okay.
Okay, so on that point, if we're talking about hormones, is there, and I suppose we're going to go back to the hormones as well, is there anything that we could do to make it fluctuate less so that it is more of a smooth ride, I guess, if you're going
Yeah.
through
Yeah,
menopause?
absolutely.
Yeah.
The one thing that you can do, the only thing that can replace the hormones is HRT.
Okay.
And it just depends whether so that's hormone replacement therapy.
Mm.
And for some women this can be an absolute life changer, okay? But for some women it's not something they want to do. And I think what's really important from where I come from and my standpoint is that it's about choice. So it's not that you go you're menopausal, right, HRT. It's got to be what else are you also going to do about it, but also is HRT for you. All right. So I mean that is the absolute key. You need to have the choice. That's the most important thing. You need to be offered that choice and go in an informed way. But the only way to replace those hormones is by HRT, okay, by hormone replacement therapy. So hence why, going back to the blood test, if the doctor takes out a vial of blood on that particular day, your hormones may be absolutely hunky-dory and playing ball.
It always happens, sod's law, isn't it?
Exactly. So then your doctor goes, no, your hormones are fine. And you're going, yeah, but I feel like I'm going crazy, literally crazy. My body's been taken over by aliens. I am not the person I was. I don't want to go out. I don't want to socialize. I can't read books like I used to. I can't, like there's so much going on. Some people suffer with tinnitus. Some people suffer with burning mouth syndrome. There's so many things going on which are unexplained. So really, it's important to understand that blood test is not the most effective way during perimenopause to understand whether you've got hormone shifting. During menopause and postmenopause, yes, you're going to see a real shift in hormones. So,
but then when you go through the menopause, though, has it then averaged out? Because obviously perimenopause is going crazy. Has it then averaged out in menopause?
Yeah. So menopause, if you're not having a bleed, you're not ovulating, you're not having a period. So yeah, that's when it's happening. That's when your body for that year, there's not the same type or amount of estrogen being produced by your body or used by your body, and also your progesterone and testosterone levels are different as well. Yeah.
One of the things, and I think this is quite a common thing with perimenopause and menopause, is the sweating and the heat, feeling hot and cold. And some women go through the sweating as in they have patches of sweat. Is there something that can be done to alleviate that, or is it just cope with it?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of things with all the symptoms of menopause. And this is where I believe that there's a lot that we can do in terms of lifestyle, in terms of diet. Okay, really, really important that we address those things. That kind of specific hot sweating and all of that, it's all about layering up. It's all about and practical advice, but also understanding your menopause, right? Understanding what's happening, knowing that, as an example for me right now, I've got a t-shirt under this. I've got this on because I was cold. I can tell you in about 5 seconds I'm going to have a hot flash because I can feel it coming on, and you'll see me stripping off my layers. Well, yeah, that's it.
And Mira, you're just happy that we're not doing this on video in that case, aren't you?
Listen, I don't mind. I don't care. I'm happy to be exposed for everything and anything that needs to be exposed for menopause.
I love that. Now I want to press record.
Yeah, but it's that thing of being practical. Okay, so if you need to carry a fan with you, carry a fan with you. If you need to layer up, so you've got a vest, a t-shirt, and a whatever, layer it up. That's kind of the practical advice. And when things like going to bed, making sure maybe you've got a fan near you, window open, making sure the temperature in the house is cool, making sure that maybe your partner wants to have a duvet, that's fine, but maybe you need a sheet. So you need to kind of just adapt that. And then on that note, actually, it's about talking to your partners and people in your family too, but we'll get onto that.
I was going to say, we'll get on that. But then again, where you said the temperature goes up and down, it's a bit tough. You've got all the windows open to stop those sweating, and then all of a sudden you're freezing cold.
Yeah.
So your partner obviously has to get up and shut the windows.
Yeah.
It's funny you say that, because I have 2 duvets and then I have a sheet. So when I'm really cold, the 2 duvets come on. My husband thinks I'm crazy. And then I've got the sheet if I'm too hot. You're right. It's up and down.
It's up and down.
I'm not on social media very often, but I was having a quick look was it today or tomorrow? I've got memory like a sieve as well. Yesterday. But I did actually see 2 MPs trying on a vest.
The hot vest, yes. So Caroline Harris, yeah. So she was the one who's heading the menopause inquiry. So she was the one who invited me to the thing. So yeah, she's brilliant.
Lovely.
Yeah,
it was just by chance that I came across it. Maybe it was because we were following Mira and had realised. But
what is the menopause inquiry? Let's go a bit more into that and understand.
Basically, I think they're looking at the impact of menopause on society as a whole, and finding and then looking towards putting proposals to government to ensure that women. I think the ultimate aim is to ensure that women are given equality and treated fairly in being able to access what they need to support them through menopause, because there are there are a lot of studies happening, but there is that if 50% of your population is going to go through menopause at some stage, that is going to have an impact, not just on, you know, a husband-wife relationship or a familial relationship, but we know it's having an impact on people in the workplace. We know it could be having an impact on so many different societal things, such as, you know, it could even be having an impact on what about the number of women in prison? What age are they? What about the divorce rate? What age is that? What about kind of, you know, there's a lot. There's a lot that can be looked into, and that's really what they're looking at. And just by doing something as simple as giving women HRT, if that's what they want. But I truly believe it is much more holistic, and it's got to be looked at. So going back to your hot flushes in a minute, looked at in a much more holistic way. Just like you would if you were trying to prepare your body for pregnancy, you've got to do exactly the same. And women and girls need to know, women, girls, men, everyone needs to know about it as part of life, because we're all living longer. We could be living in our menopausal years for 30 to 40 years, if not more.
On that
Right.
note, I was just about to, I just saw the shock on Taj's face. So when you said that 30, 40s, oh my God, you're going to give her a heart attack as well. What I was going to say, I mean, I've got so many questions just from that little section. I'll keep forgetting them every time.
I know, I do want to go back to the hot flushes though in a minute.
I know,
to
we need to,
practical tips.
I was going to say, I'm going to go back to most of everything you've said. We're going to keep jumping back and forth, but now it's gone completely out of my mind. There we are. That's a... there we are. No, sorry, Taj. So do you find, because I was actually talking to my brother-in-law about this, and it's probably one of the last conversations you generally have, but are organizations now starting to cover this? Because I know from him, and he works in quite a big bank, where they have actually had menopausal training. And the comment that he made afterwards was, oh my God, I hadn't realized it was like that, and how important this topic is. And that's from him.
Yeah, it's funny, that same brother-in-law is the person that I would never have thought I would have spoken to about menopause, and he basically educated me about menopause. And I was like, wow, this big guy, this butch guy, you wouldn't have expected him to educate me about menopause. And I'm like, yeah, I'm going through that. So education does work.
Absolutely key. Education is the only way that we can begin to implement change, and also action, right? So he's been educated, he's taking action by passing on that information. And it is important also to remember that we do need factual information, because I think there's a lot of sadly, there's a lot of stuff. As soon as marketing companies see that there is a niche market there, they're going to go bang, let's go. I mean, we do also have a menopause at work program. So I run a program for individuals, a group program for individuals, helping them through to sort of navigate their menopause as well. But we also run a work program as well, Don't Pause Menopause at Work, where again it's exactly that thing about educating your workforce, because actually it's the largest growing demographic, okay, in the workplace. Also, if you're trying to save money and if you're trying to be efficient, you don't want to recruit. You want to retain the staff you've got, particularly if they're loyal, particularly if they've been there for, and they're efficient and they know the system, they know what's going on. Investing in that and making some small changes can really help to make the workplace much more fair, equal, and inclusive to women who are going through the menopause.
Do you think there is then a shift in organizations recognizing menopause as, I don't know what the word is, but something they need to raise awareness of? And
yeah, it's beginning to happen, and I think that's important. I think I always feel sad that it takes a celebrity to make something happen, but that sort of annoys me, because I just think, why can't we just recognize the everyday women that are going through it, that I see all the time? They're the warriors, they're the brave people that I see, that actually are brave enough to go, Mira, I need help, and are now kind of the champions that we're creating, to going into the workforce saying, right, I need you to change stuff, but because I think because of the celebrity input that we've had recently, I think it is being covered more. However, I do have to say one thing about that, is that I did direct message the producer and Davina McCall, and just said there's no South Asian representation. Just by having Nigar Arif on there, And I
Okay.
know Nigat really well. She's a dear friend. I said, just by having her on there does not give us South Asian representation. I said, where is it? And I also said that to Carolyn Harris as well. I
Okay,
said,
Mira, you
yeah,
hit on a very, very interesting point, and now you're talking. I'm like, I need this question now. I mean, Tad just texted me, and she's like, "Let's talk about the South Asian." You've mentioned itself. I didn't even push you to mention the South Asian aspect of it because obviously our podcast is focused on South Asians.
yeah, yeah.
What difference are you finding in the South Asian community about their approach to menopause?
Okay. So women's health really doesn't get a look in, does it, for in the South Asian community? It's taboo. We don't talk about periods, we don't talk about sex, we don't talk about orgasm, we don't talk about any of these things, we don't even talk about childbirth, we don't even talk about pregnancy in a lot of
Yeah.
communities. And there really
We
is
don't talk.
we don't talk. We just do, right? We don't get we're seen and not heard. But anyway, I think there isn't even a word for menopause, right? There isn't a one word for menopause. So you got to start at that basis, that actually if you don't really even have a word to be able to describe what's happening right now, you've got to kind of step back and think, right, how do we educate? How do we work? The reason why there are differences is because it's a taboo.
Mm-hmm.
Women don't know about their own bodies. They're not given the opportunity to respect and love their bodies, to look at their bodies, to understand what's happening. And that's really the issue. So when I see women, um, a lot of the women will ask to speak to me privately, confidentially, of course, but as in, even if they attend my program, they're very nervous about being. So I create a little WhatsApp group. So I say, look, you know what? It's about community. You guys need to know there's somebody else going through. You really do. It will help you so much to know that someone else is having a struggle because their husband wants roti and dal, and you're having to have something completely different because you're changing your diet up because it's not working for you. Or your kids are still coming home and are like whatever 30 and still demanding food. It's very kind of normal Indian household stuff that's happened.
I was
Asians
going to say, you're just talking about my day to day, to be fair.
I know. I'm like, look, I've got my kids as well. My 28-year-old daughter's still coming in. But it's those things. So, but even to be part of that community and WhatsApp community, they're very nervous. No, but I don't want anybody to know I'm going through this. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to share this. This is because what will people say? So that's where we're starting. That's number
What
one.
is the worry that people would? What is the worry?
Of why
Basically,
they don't want to
There's
talk about
something
it.
wrong with them, that they're ill.
okay.
They can't manage, they can't cope. They're having to, this is an illness, or a disease, or it's something that they brought upon themselves. And the the second thing that happens is that the next thing I get is, oh, that's great, but I can't do it. I can't do the program. I can't commit to that. Why can't? Because it's 8 weeks. Okay, I can't do 8 weeks. I can't because then I've got the kids, and I've got the husband, and I've got my mum-in-law, and I've got my parents, and I've got this, and I've got that. Okay, all right. Well, we'll make your life easier. Let's do something. Okay. What's the cost? I'll tell them cost. No. My son's going to university. I've got to get a new carpet. My husband's got to go on something. I've got to. So where are they?
Yeah, so women are always they're always putting themselves last, and we all do that.
All of them.
But the
And
question is,
yeah,
those people that are having those conversations with you, are their families also saying that as well? Or are they saying, "Oh my God, you're driving me crazy. You're having hot flashes. Your
no,
hormones are
because they
everywhere."
don't even
You
know.
go.
You're
Okay.
talking. You're going kind of one step ahead, because these are people that don't know what's happening to them.
Ah,
And the
got you.
second, the final thing here, just to bear in mind, is we're talking about the women that are coming to me are able to speak English. Quite a few of them are highly educated, right?
Mm.
Not all of them, but quite a few of them are highly educated, or they are, part of they've integrated within society in a particular way, or whatever. They're living in whatever. We see them everywhere. It's the unseen. It's the ones that aren't talking, the ones that don't speak English, the ones that are having to have people to help them to understand, right? Who are still speaking their mother tongue and may not have any literature. Or how are they getting access to this information? How do they know to tell the doctor this is what's happening to them.
So
Right?
just to clarify, because obviously we're looking at, I suppose, people that have come to England new, which is the ones that you're talking about now. But then are you finding those second generation people, where, like you said, are professionals, are educated, are they as resistant to talk about menopause, or don't
Yes,
really?
yes,
Oh, that's
everybody. I mean,
interesting.
it's not so much the people I'm talking about are, perhaps even they may not even be the ones who don't understand English, the ones who are here and struggling. They're not necessarily resistant to talk about it. They just don't know what's going. They don't know what's happening to them. They think they're ill, right?
Hmm.
They think they're unwell. That's they've got arthritis, or they've got this, or they've got that, and actually, it could all just be they need a bit of HRT, or they need to change their lifestyle. Diabetes, your risk of diabetes, heart disease, all increases. Your risk of Alzheimer's all increases with menopause, right? So it's really serious. It's something we need to take seriously. So those are the taboos. Those are the things that are very different within Asian society, within South Asian society. It's our culture. We're just not supposed to talk about these things.
Yeah, and it's the lack of education, because I remember when our mum was going through it, and quite a few of our friends have said this as well. And we look back and we think, oh, I remember when my mum was just really stroppy and throwing mood swings. Oh, maybe that was the
Yeah,
time that
yeah,
she was starting menopause. Now we're starting the journey of it. Now we're looking back what our parents were going through.
yeah, yeah.
So again, it's the education that is
It's the
needed.
education,
But
totally.
the problem is, and I always say this, we've covered so many topics, and there's a sentence that you said earlier. What will people say? Oh my God, the number of times I've heard that on this podcast, it's depressing
Yeah,
to
it
hear
is.
that.
It is.
Do you?
But it's not. You've got to understand that like, for example, if you talk about my mum or my brother, there are certain members of my family, including my generation, like my brother and that, who would still do the same thing. It's like, Mira, what are you doing?
And this
Why
is
are
what I
you
was.
talking about this? But now I just went to see my mum just now. Just literally came back from seeing her. She could not be prouder of me. She's just like, Mira, this is amazing. Just keep doing it. If it's making you happy and you're helping other people, just keep doing it.
Wow,
And
that's amazing.
3 years ago, she's like, "What are you doing? Don't do this." And now she's getting people commenting to her in the community saying, "Oh, these are people I don't particularly know, and they're not particularly, but they're all reaching out to my mum and saying, "Oh, it's really lovely that Mira's doing this." But the thing that the kind of the bright side of what I just said to you is those women who then do come on my program, those women that do seek that help and are brave enough to go, do you know what? No, I'm going to do this. Okay. The change is unbelievable. They talk to their families, they talk to their children. They become these really fierce, really strong women. They make those changes. They turn around to their husbands and say, "Do you know what you want, or do you make it yourself? Or you have the one from yesterday because I've made it." And then I've got a lady who was like, left her job. She then went and searched for another job, got a much better job because she just couldn't deal with it. I've had ones where they're Mira, my husband, and my children, they're laughing at me for going on this program because they're just saying, well, oh yeah, what kind of program are you going on? Girl, it was all about menopause. See me now, I'm doing burpees, I can lift weights, I'm like, I've lost weight, but not weight, I'm not, I'm where I want to be, I'm getting to where I want to be long term. My health is amazing, I'm feeling so good. Like, that's now you watch, right?
And the energy. I don't know what you were like before, but you've got more energy than I have on most days. To be fair, so whatever you're doing, carry on, ladies and
Well,
gentlemen.
that's the lifestyle changes that we can talk about, that people can do, and there are simple things that people can do that can really really help, as well, to get to that point. So there is a lot we can do, but we need to understand that there are certain things that as we get, just like when we're in pregnancy, there are certain things we can't eat, or if we had a particular condition or issue that we couldn't eat. That's the same thing with menopause. Our body is different. It is not the same body. Our brain is changing. Our body is changing. Really important that we respect that and not just keep battering it the whole time, and really give it what it needs now and nourish it and nurture it for the next X number of years. And it will make huge differences.
So talking about the support network, so we've said that in families people don't talk about this subject because there is not even a word for it. So how do we create that support network? How do we get people talking? How do we get males in the family talking?
Yeah.
Because everyone should be discussing it.
Yeah. And it was one thing, actually, it was really interesting that Nigat Arif once said to me, she did a menopause coffee morning, which I do not for profit, and I do those once a month minimum. And she it was one thing she said, what's really interesting is it's the men coming to the surgeries with high blood pressure, stress, anxiety. When you ask them what's happening with their wives at home, their wives have got low mood, they're depressed, they've got palpitations, they're not the same woman that I married, they're not, I don't know what's going on with her, 1 minute she's this, 1 minute she's that, right? So
You're making her make roti, that's what it is, at an unsociable
well,
hour.
it could be, but actually the impact of a woman going through menopause is not just on the woman, it's on absolutely everybody. It's on the children, it's on the people she's caring for, it's on the husband that she her husband, it's or her partner, it's on her cousins, her relatives, her friends as well. So by helping and supporting that one person, you kind of end up helping and supporting everybody as well. The way to make the change is to do what we're doing now, to do what you girls are doing now, to do what I'm doing now, and there are now so many more people out there talking, which is what we need to do. That's the only way to do it. I often now get male friends of friends coming up to me and saying, so, and they'll come on the side and say, so what's this menopause thing you keep going on about? What are you doing? What is that? And then you'll talk about it. And then sometimes they get a bit uncomfortable, but it's fine. I try not to use words like vagina and stuff like that because that freaks them out.
Oh no, not vagina.
I know. And then it's like, and also sex can be uncomfortable, and they're like, oh, I'm not going to
I don't know what that is.
So I try really hard not to do that on the first meeting or the first time they ask about it. But it's just getting them comfortable. So that's the other thing. You've got to come at it in a way that people feel supported, they feel confident. You're not gonna start throwing things at them, especially within the South Asian community. That's going to make them go, oh, I don't want to talk about that, that's just too much for me, I don't want to know. You gradually build up people's confidence and knowledge, and then you start going into certain things that they could be experiencing, right? As an example, another symptom is is vaginal itching, vaginal dryness. It is painful sex. Those are things, sore breasts, those are things that could happen. Increased risk of breast cancer, right? Not just from taking HRT, but in general when we're going through menopause. So those are things that need to be looked at. And also kind of your genitalia changes. So that needs to be looked at. So, it's important that we talk about those. But I have found that within the South Asian community, a gentler approach builds in a bit of trust, and then you start to talk about those things, particularly with the men, right? And with certain women. But the thing as well is, if it's in the workplace, you've got men and women in the workplace. That's a daughter or a son, a brother or a sister, right? A husband or a wife. That's one thing. If we're talking about it in our community like we are talking about it now, could be one person that can understand what's going on with their friend, or their friend's mum, or or their mother-in-law, or anything, or even themselves. And that's how we begin to make that change. It's talking about it continuously, raising awareness all the time. And I know I've heard this whole thing of, some people, oh, we're really bored about it now because it's all on the TV, it's everywhere. Well, no, you can't talk about it enough, because women's health is really, really important. Yes, it's all about, you've got to get men and boys to understand it too. You've got to work together. You've got to support each other in this.
It's interesting. I was going to ask this question earlier, but with when you start puberty and all that sort of stuff, it is actually spoken about at school. It's a dedicated place. You're going to have the sex education talk. It's a dedicated place. So we do need this conversation, because it's the other end of it. And where else are most of the community going to be? It's going to be in workplaces most of the time, or community centres, I guess.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was just going to hit that on that as well, because just this week my daughter's had at school they talked about puberty, and I was saying to her, "Oh, you're starting the talk of that, but I'm on the other end of the menopause. Is it too young to speak to children of, I don't know, 10-year-old about what menopause is? Because you're talking about puberty, but now you're talking about the other
Oh, that's
end of,
interesting, isn't it?
because
No,
we're on
it
the
is.
two ends."
It is
Mm.
being brought into schools, and it is being brought into the education system at schools very slowly, I think, but it is. I've heard it. I've heard a couple of people that have said to me there were kind of questions in certain in biology and stuff when they were doing GCSEs and things. So I think it is being brought into the syllabus. Is it too young? No, absolutely not. That's what they're going to go through. It's like saying, well, they're too young to learn about pregnancy. I don't think they are. It's too young for them to learn about periods. No.
Well, it's the same thing. So if your daughter, like Taj's daughter's doing it, then she will understand why you're going through it, and so it makes sense,
Absolutely. And
doesn't
it's
it?
the same for my children, and my girls have been the most supportive. My husband's been absolutely incredible. And he actually did a podcast, and we did a live as well, but he did a podcast talking about, his experience with menopause, the men in menopause. And, I was, I was really, really taken aback. But in an emotional, like, wow, I never realized that's what you were going through
And
way.
that's the other side of it, because you don't realize you're going through it, but it is the impact on and we don't think about that, do we?
Everyone,
Yeah.
everyone, they were all so worried about me. I didn't realize the kids were so worried about me. But for him, he just said, he said, I married this one person, and he said, I wanted that person back. And he just said, I didn't know where you were, and I didn't know what to do to help you. I didn't know how to help you. I didn't know what to do to help you.
In that case, because you're talking past tense, do you then come round back to who you were, I suppose, is the question I have.
You are a new evolved you. I am not the person that I was. I could never have done what I'm doing now. 10 years ago, 14 years ago, I would never have had the voice. Yeah, I've always been bolshy, and I've never really fitted into a box in any way, shape or form. And if you say to me I can't do something, I'll always go ahead and do it. I've always been that kind of person.
Yeah.
However, no, I you're a new person. The thing to understand is, with menopause, my program is called Don't Pause for Menopause, and it's called that for a reason. It is, menopause brings with it so many opportunities, right? You don't care pretty much anymore. You focus on the things that matter to you. You have an opportunity to use and strengthen your body in very different ways. I used to be a runner. I was always into cardio and running, really in a big way. Done half marathons, and you just kind of the Great North Run, blah blah blah. Done all of that, and I got to a point where I couldn't run anymore because of the pain I was experiencing my joints, thinking, I'm getting arthritis, and actually just ended up being, well, actually it's menopause that's causing all of this. And I then learnt about strength training, and I've been doing that ever since. Now, I did a session the other day. I did some filming with a lovely lady called Charlou, one of our experts who works who works as part of Made from Scratch and provides some PT for our clients. And she's got to be a good, well, at least 15 or 20 years younger than me. I think she's probably about 30 years younger when I look at her. She's so young. She looks so young. It's unreal.
To be fair, Mira, I was thinking of that about you, and me. I was like, oh my god, she's going through menopause. I mean, you look
Yeah, no,
fantastic.
54 at the end of the week.
Wow, you do
Yeah,
look 54.
and we were doing exercises, and it was amazing. It didn't matter what age, you couldn't have told the difference. It's the same with my daughters. I train with my daughters, one's 26, one's 28. I'll train with them, and we'll train together. But I never thought I'd be able to do a snatch or a deadlift or 50 burpees or whatever it is I was doing. I never dreamt of that in my life. Or doing headstands and handstands because I do yoga and stuff.
Oh,
Never
wow.
dreamt of it.
Good.
But it was an opportunity for me to learn. It's an opportunity for me to thrive. And that's what we've got to focus on for women. You've got to remember the positives are you don't have any periods.
Woohoo!
Yes.
That is like the best
Wow.
thing ever. If you, I mean,
Honest.
I want to sign up right now.
Yeah, well, I mean, I have to say, I used to think that, and then when I got to that whole the 10 years that it took me to get to menopause, and then I'm now been postmenopausal for about 3 years. But you do struggle with that journey, but that's a positive. It's a real positive. Your body is teaching you a lot more. You know, it's it really is teaching you a lot more, and you really are able to focus a lot more on yourself, or you should at least use it as an opportunity to focus on yourself, as long as you're given that opportunity. So there's a lot of positives in going through menopause, for sure.
So let's turn it the other side. So you sound like the people that you talk to eventually do get a supportive network. What about the people that just haven't got that network to support them? The
Yeah.
men in their lives, or not men, the women in their lives are like, leave it, leave it, leave it. I don't want to hear it. How can they support themselves in that case through
Well,
their
I mean,
journey?
it is that's a tough one, and that's what I'm really working on. And I know there are a couple of, again, I'm mentioning Nigat because she, we sort of seem to do a lot of things which are in sync. But it's about I can't say enough. Just keep doing it. Keep doing what we're doing. Right? There's no I don't often get paid for my talks. I'll just go and talk wherever if I do, I'm thankful because it gives me a bit of money, but otherwise I just talk anywhere. Having these free, well, they're not free, but they're not-for-profit events where I try and charge a minimum, where we can have speakers and they're face-to-face, and we can have it within the community, and getting the community to host these. So there's another company, another community that approached me. It's the Slough Sisters. It's the Slough Sisters. They approached me and asked me to do a talk for them on menopause. And they're a not-for-profit organization as well. Very happy to go. So it's literally about keep talking to people, keep the penny will drop. Keep referring people to where they can get information, where you can signpost them for factual, proper information. It's also about translating that information as well, sometimes into language that is understood. So I've got a girl that works with me, Minu, speaks, and I've got another one, Neha, and they speak a variety of languages between them, South Asian dialect languages between them. And, we're going to definitely do something on translating. And I think Nigat's already done something as well on that too. So, yeah, it's just about where can they get the support. My website, it's I don't need to know who you are. You can just go in there and have a look. And seek out, there's podcasts there for you to listen to. So my podcasts focus on menopause pretty much. They can really listen without having any kind of need to reach out to anyone. And there's also sort of free resources on there as well. So, it is important for that to be available. When I used to, there was nothing when I started looking. Only HRT, and HRT is dangerous and you're going to die if you have HRT. That's the only thing I read 14 years ago. The other thing is I'm also involved in a research study, which is a global research study, where we're looking at symptoms being different in different cultures as well. And that is definitely true. So there is definitely evidence to show that socioeconomic and geographical differences mean that women present differently with different symptoms as well.
It would be interesting to find out. So when you do conclude that would be fantastic for
Yeah. And when
to
I'm on
come
it, I'll
on.
definitely let you know, because what we need is 1 million women or over to do the survey, to sign up to just do the survey, and it's quite a quick kind of survey. So once we're up and running with that, I as I said, I'm part of a part of a it's a global thing, and once they all set it all up, then I will spread it out to everybody I know to get them to fill it in. But yeah, there is differences in how it's presented, and how and also things like stress can trigger off menopause earlier as well.
Just as we come to an end with this podcast, can you give us, especially for our South Asian women who are probably approaching menopause, just a bit of advice? Because we've spoken about so much, but what little nugget would you give them to help them
Yeah.
through this stage?
Okay. First thing is to acknowledge that's what's happening. So make a check of your symptoms. Keep a check of your symptoms and don't disbelieve them, right? So don't keep pushing them off to something else. Keep a check of those symptoms, and then think about certain things that may be triggering and making things worse. So as an example, things like caffeine, coffee, tea, caffeine in general, alcohol, spicy foods, sadly, and also a lot of foods which are heavily spiced and cooked in a lot of heavy oils. All of those things, and alcohol. So all of those things can really make symptoms worse, particularly things like hot flushes and aching joints and things like that. Okay. Consider making sure that you move every single day. So I know there's this thing about 10,000 steps. 100% do the 10,000 steps and work towards that. But the most important thing you can do for yourself as well is to do some kind of resistance training every single day. And by that, I mean, when you're taking your shopping out of a shopping bag, you pick up those cans,
Potatoes,
you do a
yeah.
couple of bicep presses, you do a squat, and then you put it up in the shelf, right?
Well,
You get
this
the
is the
water
thing is,
bottles.
it's about making it practical because all of us have busy lives, isn't it? So I
Right.
think
So
I
when
love
you're
that
putting your
example.
shopping away,
Yeah.
right? I've done this thing with I do a lot. I do work for Stella, who are owned by Vera Health, and they're an app. It's an app that does work for menopause. It's a menopause app, and I did a whole thing for them. And we're also doing some more actually ourselves. So Mira's Made from Scratch, Mira Bogle. We're both doing that on Instagram, where we're doing everyday stuff, but literally is. So when you're going to sit down on a chair, squat, sit down and stand back up, sit down, stand back up. Just do that 3 times. You've done squats, okay? If you've got some water bottles, lift those water bottles, push them up into the air, up and down a few times, okay? You've got tin cans. I know you might look a bit crazy in the kitchen, but there's no one in the kitchen. It's fine if you're cooking, right? Do a little bit of a dance in the kitchen. Do a little bit of dancing, get some, if you've got AirPods on or whatever. So it doesn't matter what age you are. You don't have to be wearing particularly anything, any clothing, particular type of clothing. It can be done anywhere, sitting down, standing up, putting your shopping away, stretching, bending down and stretching, that kind of thing.
Just get
Doing a few
moving.
bicep curls,
Move,
bringing
move,
in
move.
resistance training.
Mm.
Really, really important. So spending some time outdoors, making sure you get outside, because if you're not sleeping well, when you go outside, the outdoor, the light outside helps with your melatonin, and melatonin is something we need to regulate our sleep. So spending some time outside, and also if you can, if you can find time in your day, it's really important, is just to spend a little bit of time just by yourself, just you, just with some whatever you like, whether it's budgeons or whatever it is you're listening to, it doesn't matter, just there, just you, or you're reading your book, and just spend 10 minutes by yourself, just bringing your stress levels down, bringing your cortisol levels down, breathing, do maybe even get like a meditation app that helps. Those are really basic, really, really basic things. But those are things that I know just implementing those will automatically start to help people to feel a little bit better and to navigate through. But keep searching for knowledge. And so one more thing, please. Don't get conned into, I need these vitamin pills, which are menopausal, or I need, this washing powder, which is menopausal, or I need this, this bread is menopausal bread. Don't go into anything that says, it's a menopause, it's for you, because you can literally get conned into thinking and spending loads of money on stuff that really isn't relevant. If you ever need any advice as well, reach out to people like myself, email me, message me. I will always try and answer you back or get in touch, even if it's to say, don't take that. There's this thing that's coming out at the minute, is menopausal vitamin tablets. I'm like, do you even need vitamins? Why are you taking, do you know that you need them? So don't waste money. But yeah, that's the bits of advice I'd give you.
And don't buy that bread. I'm going to look
Don't
it.
buy the bread. I'm waiting for it. I'm telling you, menopausal cookies.
I'm going to
waiting
Google it.
for
I've never even heard of it.
No, it isn't there. But I'm telling you, somebody's going to come up with some ridiculous idea.
I think you better patent the idea before anyone does, to be fair.
Oh, I don't want to do that. I've actually got a menopausal tea. I was sitting there talking about it. I actually have a tea called Flash Dance, which I've made myself, which actually helps with, as part of all of this, it helps with, it's got sage and marjoram in it, and it helps with kind of reducing hot flashes if it's taken over a period of time. But yeah, I just realised I said that, and it's like, but it's true. This one I can vouch for, it works.
Lovely. Thanks so much for your time, Mira. It's been so informative. It's, Taj and me have discussed it very briefly as Taj is going through the early stages. I am, of course, the younger sister, so it won't be too far from me as well.
I'll get you too.
It's not too far. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for having me on. It's been a real pleasure.
Perfect. That's goodbye from me.
And goodbye from me.
Follow us on Instagram and Facebook, changing_suits, and subscribe so you never miss an episode.